Testing audio. Yep, we're good. Are we good? Yeah. All right, we're good. All right. Hello, gentlemen. Gentlemen, hello. Today, Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. Happy New Year. Today, we'll be talking about subtle ways that men are signaling insecurity in their conversations and how to fix it. And this topic was brought up by one of my clients. I had a call with him yesterday, and guy fits the bill. Yeah, he looks good, sounds good, good career, and still finds himself trying to figure out why some of the conversations aren't going the way that he wants. And so this is something I struggled with as well. And I figured it out, and I'm here to share with you the things that I learned. So we're going to be going through what guys are more so behavior, how guys are behaving in conversations when they're in front of women they're attracted to that are causing the conversations to go nowhere. So specifically what they're doing behavior wise, and then how to correct it at the end. So firstly, if you don't know who I am, my name is Ephraim. I've got a background. Oh, geez, I can speak. I've got a background in software engineering and tech sales, and I'm 26 years old now. And what I do is I teach men, professional introverted men, how to communicate with women, how to socialize in person rather than online through an app, and how to create real world connection with women that they're attracted to in everyday situations. So, if you would like me to help you out with that as well, if you'd like to apply for coaching with me one on one, then you can click the link in the description below to schedule an application call with me. All right. So, first, let's draw a line as we get into the topic. So, the first thing I teach my clients who I privately coach one on one is technique. And technique is important when it comes to cold approach specifically, because everything that I'm going to go through in this live stream, it'll be a hefty live stream. You can be solid at everything that I'm going to talk about, but if your technique is really poor when it comes to how you're stopping the girl, how you're getting her attention, if you tend to walk over to her and she gets startled, then you're shooting yourself in the foot from the very beginning. So in that case, behavior is important, but it doesn't really matter if you have no technique or if you have really bad technique. So that's the first thing. But technique isn't what we're going to be going over in this live stream. That's what I teach my clients in person. So we spend a handful of days walking them through. I spend a handful of days walking them through how I go about stopping the girl. I teach them how to do it, and we rep it out so that they know how to do it and are confident doing it by the time they go back home. But when they do go back home, oftentimes they can run into a new issue, which is during the coaching itself, and once they're trying to approach on their own using the skills they've built with me, they can still sometimes, and this depends on the client because everybody's has a different starting point, but they can sometimes still find that the conversations aren't going as well as they want, and they're not feeling quite as confident as they would like to in some of these conversations, especially when the girl is very attractive. And oftentimes it's kind of a blind spot. They don't necessarily know what they're doing wrong or how they're behaving wrong, but what they're doing in the conversation, how they're behaving in it, absolutely contributes to the outcome of the conversation itself. And so that's the stuff that we're going to be going over in this live stream, is the behavior that guys are lacking in that they need to improve on. Because, we're sold this dream. Hold on. So we're sold this dream that if you look as pretty as possible and you build all this muscle and you have this amazing career, and guys talk about, what is it, looks, money, status. If you maximize all of these accessory areas, then all of a sudden you're going to just be confident. You're just going to show up in the world more confident. And I'm not here to argue how true that statement is, but I will say, if you look better, right? If you look in the mirror and you like what you see versus if you look in the mirror and you see something you don't like, then you will feel more confident, sure. If you're making more money and you have a real solid, tight knit friend group, or you have people that just respect you when you're around them, you will feel better, sure. But does that directly build somebody's confidence? That's hard to say because we've got plenty examples of bodybuilder physique type guys who still have shit results when it comes to women, who still can't figure out how to flirt. And we've got examples of guys who make a ton of money. Yeah, we got guys making six figures a month that still can't get a girlfriend. Right? A lot of the clients and a lot of people that end up reaching out to me, not to say they're wealthy by any means, but they're doing all right for themselves. Yeah, I'm talking data analysts, engineers, attorneys. So financially they're doing fine, but for some reason the confidence hasn't caught up with their career advancement yet. Same thing with physique. Yeah, I've got some guys that reach out to me that look pretty damn good. Few clients that were clearly more muscular than me, and that's not saying much. But for some reason, that confidence hasn't necessarily come along with that amazing physique that they've built. So the first thing we have to do is recognize that it's great to maximize how you look and how you show up in the world outwardly, but what actually moves the needle when it comes to flirting, when it comes to romance, when it comes to attraction, is it has much more to do with how you behave as opposed to how you look, specifically for women. And so let's go through some of this. So the main issue that guys face before working with me and even while they're working with me and they're getting the technique down, right? And their stop looks pretty damn good. Their technique looks amazing. The very next thing we begin working on is their behavior. And this one takes a lot longer to sort out. And so this is by no means an overnight fix. You don't just watch a live stream, understand it all, download the information, and all of a sudden your behavior is fixed. This is you going outside and socializing with people and practicing the stuff that I'll be talking about in this live stream to actually improve upon it. But the main issue that guys face when it comes to being in conversation with women is they are communicating a sense of unworthiness. So the way that they're behaving in the conversation communicates to the woman that they're speaking to that they feel unworthy of speaking to her, of flirting with her, of taking her out on a date, chatting to her romantically. And don't worry, I'm not just going to leave it there. I'm actually going to break down what it is that guys are doing in these conversations that very directly communicates this unworthiness. So some examples of unworthiness would be nervousness. So guys are very stern, very fidgety, very very tense. That's a good word. They're very tense in conversation. That communicates nervousness. Yeah, insecurity, which I put in the title. That's a big theme, right? It's things, and we're going to go through a lot of what this means, but nervousness, insecurity. Yeah, so guys are behaving in front of the woman in a very insecure way. Remember, these are guys that look good already. They already have this stellar career path. Yeah, they've already advanced in their career. They're making good money. They look solid. Yeah, they've put in some work in the gym and they're social. Yeah, that's the funny part. I don't coach guys who um, I don't coach guys who have a complete lack of social skills. That's one of the criteria for people that apply to work with me and actually get accepted is they actually need to know how to socialize with people. And just because you know how to socialize with somebody though doesn't necessarily mean that you're not socializing with them in a somewhat insecure way or in a manner that communicates insecurity. And then the other thing is pessimism. Yeah, as an overall lack of self-esteem. So the next question we want to address, and by the way, I glance over at my whiteboard here if you're curious, but the next question we want to address is, so guys are signaling unworthiness by being nervous, being insecure, and being somewhat pessimistic. So how do these signals reveal themselves in the conversation itself? And this is going to be really the meat of the live stream here. So The first way is the most obvious way, so we won't spend too much time talking about it, but it's a lack of eye contact. So again, every client that comes to work with me starts at a different point in all of these areas. But I have had some clients that their eye contact was solid, but it wasn't quite strong enough, especially the hotter the girl was that they were speaking to. So if you're having trouble looking the girl in the eye while you're speaking to her, and this doesn't mean, right, this doesn't mean like staring her down the entire time, never glancing away. But like one thing I notice with some of my clients is, especially when they're chatting to an extremely attractive girl, they have trouble looking her in the eyes when she's speaking to them. And they'll kind of glance around, they'll look around at people, kind of gauging what they're thinking, right? What the other people are thinking. Maybe they'll look down or they'll look up, they'll just look around. They have trouble looking her in the eye. So again, technique could be phenomenal, right? They could have stopped the girl picture perfect. But but their behavior is communicating something different, right? Their behavior, their lack of eye contact is communicating that they're a bit insecure, that they're nervous, right? That overall theme of unworthiness is being communicated to the girl. And so again, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but just as an example, notice as I look down, right? I'm speaking to you and I'm looking at my laptop and I'm looking everywhere but at you. And this communicates something different than when I raise my eyes and I look you in the eye. Of course, I'm looking at a camera, right? But I'm actually looking at somebody, right? So when you're in front of a girl and you're looking down or around versus in her eyes, you're signaling insecurity, and that's unattractive. All right. So again, we're technique versus behavior. And right now we're focusing on behavior. But that one's pretty easy. And my clients usually pick up on that pretty quickly, right? I'm able to call it out. I show them the footage and they go, oh, okay, I see that I wasn't looking her in the eye. That part's not that difficult. Now, the next one that I'm going to talk about is a bit more difficult to fix. And usually it's not an immediate fix. And that's freezing up in conversation. So you'll notice throughout my channel, my videos, my streams, a big theme of my channel is this concept of social intelligence. And under that umbrella term is the ability to communicate with somebody and get to know them without freezing up in your tracks, right? Freezing up in conversation, getting stuck, not knowing what to say next. And so a big solution for specifically for the guys that come to work with me, a big solution that they found before they discovered my channel is the whole old school style game, right? This whole concept of game and being a pickup artist. And those guys preach, having lines memorized so that if you do get stuck in conversation, well, here you've got this interesting line that you can give the girl about, I'm getting the sense that you are blank, blah, 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 all this weird, funny, odd stuff. And that's their temporary solution to the problem, right? It's kind of like a Band-Aid solution, but the drawbacks to that is it makes them sound very weird, right? Because that's not how humans socialize. We don't socialize with a script. When you're chatting to your coworkers, when you're chatting to your boss, your family, your relatives, your friends, you don't have stuff scripted. So speaking to a woman that you're attracted to should be no different. And humans are very good at telling when somebody is when somebody has something canned, right? It's very clear to most people when somebody's citing something out of a movie because it just sounds very out of place. And so when you're trying to get to know somebody, just in any context, you don't feel the need to script things. And so the same is true when it comes to romantic interactions. You shouldn't feel the need to script things. So the actual skill that guys are missing when it comes to conversations, and the reason why they're freezing up, is not that they need something scripted, it's that they lack improv skills. They lack the ability to just think on their feet. And so I had one client in particular who had taken an improv class before he ever discovered my content. And then you fast forward a couple years and then he ends up reaching out to work with me. And what do you know? That specific client has gotten some of the best results out of all of my clients. And he's the only one I know of that's taken an improv class. And so he's not the most muscular guy that I've ever coached. He's not the best looking guy that I've ever coached. He's not the richest guy that I've ever coached, right? Or the most financially secure guy I've ever coached. So you see what I'm getting at, right? He's not the most looks maxed guy that I've coached. But the one big separator for this specific client is he had no problem speaking to the girl without freezing up. He had no problem just coming up with topics. And really, when I say coming up with topics, really what I mean is just having a conversation with somebody, right? Because we always think about like, oh, I need a specific topic to talk about. But in a conversation, topics reveal themselves, right? When you speak to people in everyday environments, you don't feel the pressure to like perform and come up with a topic. And so again, it shouldn't be any different when you're in front of a woman you're attracted to. It's just that her beauty typically makes us feel nervous, which again, right, falls under the umbrella of the problem itself, right? Communicating unworthiness, part of that is nervousness. And so when a guy freezes up mid sentence in a conversation, that is communicating nervousness. And that is to some extent unattractive, right? At least when you compare it to somebody who is not freezing up in conversation. So you imagine me, if you're familiar with my content and you've watched some of my demonstrations. If you haven't, I'd encourage you click over to my playlist tab. I've got a whole section titled My Infield, so you can go and see me chat to women, and you'll see me rarely freezing up in conversation. I won't say it never happens, but rarely. Usually I'm able to recover. But the point is, if you imagine the version of me who freezes up, and this is who I used to be, right? Early days when I was first learning the skill set, it comes across as way less confident when I get stuck in the conversation and I just look at the girl or I do a little nervous laugh because I don't know what to say. There's an awkward 3 or 4 seconds of pause there. And then you compare that to who I am actually, or who I've developed myself into more specifically, which is somebody who can just chat shit, right? Even if I don't have the most smooth thing to say, I can just say something. I can just come up with something. I can just pull a question out of my ass, a non-scripted question. Yeah, I can just talk about current events or the environment or the fact that I just landed or the fact that she's a tourist or maybe she lives here and whatever. Like I can just come up with something to say. That's much more attractive because what it creates is a sense of comfort and ease in the conversation, specifically with a stranger, right? Because you have to remember what we're doing. We're socializing with this woman for the first time ever. And so the first impression that she's getting of somebody who freezes up is a nervous guy. Yeah, as a guy who isn't socially capable enough to just speak, yeah, to just chat rather than freezing up and trying to think about, oh my God, what's that line I memorized from that PUA video? And so this is one of the reason I want to spend quite a bit of time on this one is because this one's pretty big. This one's pretty big. Yeah, it's like, remember, the guy can be very muscular. Yeah, the guy can be very pretty boy. The guy can have a stellar job, but all of that, it does work in his favor. But then if you put that guy in a conversation and he freezes up, it's not going to do any good. It doesn't matter how good he looks. If he just can't socialize with a girl, it's very problematic. Remember, technique can be perfect. Yeah, the stop could be perfect. But if he doesn't know what to say, yeah, or just know how to come up with what to say, right? That in itself is a skill, the skill of improvisation. Then that becomes very problematic. And the guy can go in and do an approach after approach after approach. But if the common thread is he keeps freezing up, that's a big reason why the conversations aren't going anywhere. And oftentimes, if he's been entrenched in the red pill space, like most of us were for the past handful of years, then what's likely is he's going to revert back to what those videos told him. And he's going to think, well, the girl doesn't like me because blank. And he's going to point at his looks. He's going to point at his height. He's going to point at his body fat percentage, muscle ratio. He's going to point at his bank account or his job title. But he's not going to be pointing at the actual thing that's causing the friction in these conversations, which is you're a stranger. She's a stranger. She knows nothing about you except that for the first 10 seconds of the conversation, you were able to boldly walk over to her. You were able to compliment her. Good job. And then you froze up after that. Big problem. Yeah. And so again, towards the end of the end of the live stream, we're going to go over solutions to all of this, but just recognize The problem isn't that you need more looks maxing advice. The problem isn't you need to spend more weeks and months in the gym. Sure, go do all that. But the actual root of the problem is you don't know how to communicate all the value that you've already built. My clients come to me already built. They've already checked most of the boxes in their life that they needed to check to be an attractive guy. So all that they're missing is the delivery, right? And the delivery is not just the technique. The technique is important, and that's why I emphasize it so much, because you can't get anywhere without the technique. But what the more slow burning skill, right? The skill that takes a bit longer to build is stuff like freezing up in the conversation versus being able to just think on your feet and just come up with what to say. It doesn't have to be, you click over to my infields tab. A lot of what I'm saying isn't the smoothest. Sometimes it comes out somewhat smooth, but sometimes it comes out choppy. Sometimes it comes out of place. But the point is, I'm not freezing up. I'm not getting in front of the girl, telling her she looks amazing, and then going, so, um, so, you're wearing a scarf, and I think that means it's cold outside, right? It's like the guy's taken 6 seconds to hesitate just to come up with some weird line, right? Instead, I just go, so what are you up to? Oh, you're shopping, yeah? Oh, what'd we buy? Okay, sweet, that's cool. Are you from the area? Nice. Yeah, no, I just got in town actually. Usually I'm living here, but recently I've been living all around the world. I spent some time in Spain this year. So what about you? You've been out of the country? And it's like, think about like the content of what I'm saying it's not that impressive, is it? It's not that flirtatious, is it? Why do I get results then? Right? It's like, why is it that I'm able to get these dates even though the content of the conversation isn't that amazing? Like these PUA guys lead you on to believe that it must be. Yeah, it's like, how is it that these guys are telling you need to have these amazing, flirtatious, sexually charged lines that you're feeding the girl in order to get results? And then you click over to my infield and it's like, majority of it is just nonverbals, right? Majority of it is just the confidence I bring into the conversation. Well, something that demonstrates confidence in these conversations is the fact that I'm not freezing up, is the fact that I can just think on my feet and just come up with something to say. And it creates, like I mentioned, it creates a sense of comfort and chemistry in the conversation. It's able to put her at ease, even though it's just a weird scenario overall, even though it's just a random stranger that's just walked up to her and it's unorthodox in 2026. She's not used to this happening, if it's ever happened to her. And yet within 10 to 20 seconds to, maybe 40 seconds it takes, within that short amount of time, it's like we're already connected, right? We're already just chatting back and forth like we've known each other for a while. That is a very important skill that guys need to build. And go figure, one of my clients who's gotten the best results as far as who I've coached thus far happens to be the one client who's taken an improv class prior to working with me. Yeah. And at the end of this stream, I'll link in the description a very related live stream that I made over a year ago, and I really broke down, some of the things that I've done in my life that have created this social intelligence long before I learned how to cold approach. And so part of the reason why I was able to get results very quickly with this skill was not because of how I look. Right? You got to remember, I'm 5'9". I weigh 145 pounds, got no muscle on my frame, very average income, and not a crazy amount of money in the bank. Yet I'm able to get results as opposed to guys who tell you need all of this extra stuff, and a lot of times they don't even get results. Yeah. And so we're going to move on now, but this is a huge one. Yeah. So if you're a guy who's constantly freezing up in the conversation and just not knowing where to go, very quickly that tells the girl that you're speaking to, I am not confident. I am very nervous right now. I am not capable of socializing with somebody who I think is attractive. And that attraction trigger just switches off immediately. Yeah, it doesn't matter how looks maxed you are. I mean, sure, maybe you buy yourself a little bit more time if you're 6'5" and you're jacked. Sure, maybe you buy yourself a little more time. But if that archetype of guy stands in front of the girl and just can't say anything and just freezes up and chokes on his words, then he's not going to get very far with this skill set. All right, so that's an important one, which is why I spent so much time on it. All right, so we'll go to the next one now. All right. So the next factor, all right, so just as a reminder, everything I'm talking about right now demonstrates some sense of unworthiness to the girl. It's a guy demonstrating to the girl that he doesn't feel worthy of her, worthy of her time, worthy of her attention, worthy of a date. And oftentimes this looks like nervousness and insecurity and pessimism. And so far we've gone through a lack of eye contact. That one's huge, but that one's very easy to correct. So far we've gone through freezing up in conversation. That one's huge and not as easy to correct. And it takes a lot of, well, I won't even get into what it takes to fix it yet, because that's going to be the end of the live stream. The next factor is tonality. So again, you watch my infields and you notice that I'm not doing anything crazy, right? The conversations aren't off the wall. It's not anything super special, yet they drive results, they drive dates. So how can that be the case? Well, another big one is tonality. It's how I actually sound in the conversation. So a very easy way to signal insecurity in a conversation would be with how you sound in that conversation. So if a guy is, and I even have trouble kind of pretending here, but if you go watch my older infield, you'll hear it. It's rampant in my language back then, but in my tonality. But when a guy walks in front of a girl, gives her a compliment, but he sounds kind of like this, and he goes, "Excuse me, hi, you look so good. So what are you up to? Okay, nice." And so remember, like, maybe this guy has gotten past freezing up in the conversation. Solid, right? That one's a big checkpoint to get over, learning how to actually socialize. But he sounds like this. He sounds very unsure of himself. When he asks her out, he goes, "So do you want to go out with me? Drinks or, drinks? Would you like to go out with me? Do you think you want to go out with me?" Right? When he's chatting to the girl, he doesn't sound, again, right? It's so hard to break down this word confidence, but this is a big one, right? It's like he doesn't even sound sure of what he's saying, right? He doesn't even sound sure of what he's saying, let alone how the girl is responding. And so that's very problematic. Yeah. And so if a guy, now if you combine some of these, right? So you combine perfect technique with a guy who maybe has trouble holding eye contact, with a guy who freezes up in conversation, doesn't know what to say, with a guy who also talks like he's unsure of himself, then again, it doesn't matter how good the technique is, and it doesn't matter how looks-maxed the guy is. It doesn't matter. If he sounds like that, it's a problem. It's communicating insecurity. It's communicating nervousness. It's communicating that the person speaking doesn't feel worthy of the person he's speaking to, and her attention and her time. And if you don't feel worthy of the girl's time, then why the hell would she want to go out with you? Genuine question. Yeah. So the next one is hesitant language. And I kind of tied this into the last one, but this is a big hang up for my newer clients. So remember, all my clients, when they come to work with me, they're on different points on this spectrum, right? And in each category that I'm going over, some are strong in some are weak in others. That's just how it goes. We all have our own starting point. So hesitant language is typically across the board for all of my clients, yeah, prior to working with me. And this is something we really heavily work on during the immersion, and then during my follow-up period that I give to my private clients as well. I give them 90 days of follow-up where we have weekly calls with each other. And this is one of the things we work on very heavily, is hesitant language. So again, this is something that very clearly communicates, signals to the girl that regardless of how looks-maxed you are, regardless of how muscular you might be, and regardless of how swanky your job title is, regardless of how swanky your job title is, if you're speaking to the girl with hesitant language, you're telling her that you don't think you're worthy of her, right? And so an example of this would be very permission-seeking behavior when it comes to chatting to her. So something like, "So you're not in a rush, are you? Because I don't want to take up your time if you're in a rush." Very hesitant language. Rather than just assuming she's not in a rush, because fuck, she's standing here talking to me. She must not be, right? If she is, she's going to tell me eventually. So rather rather than just owning the space and just assuming that because she's chatting to you, I guess let's keep chatting. A guy who's very hesitant as far as his language will say something like, I'm not holding you up, am I? Right? I'm not and he thinks this is politeness, and that's the thing, right? And don't get me wrong, right? If a girl's told me that she's on her way to work, then I might weave in stuff like this, right? Something like, all right, well, look, I won't keep you up for long, or all right, I'll keep it short. Yeah. To be fair, right? I guess you can angle that as somewhat hesitant, but the way I see it, that's more justified politeness. But when a girl's given you no sign that she wants to walk away from you, yet you're introducing stuff like, are you in a rush? Or so I don't want to like hold you up. Like even the way a guy is saying it is important, right? It's one thing to say, all right, I'll keep it brief. Oh, you're on your way to work, are you? Okay, I'll keep it brief. It's another thing to say, oh, you're on your way to work, are you? Okay, well, I don't want to hold you up, like I know your time is valuable. It's like even that, right? It's just the language itself. It's very, very watered down. It's very hesitant. And again, it's communicating insecurity, nervousness, unworthiness. So, and that's a small example. Usually this hesitant language is littered throughout the entire conversation for my newer clients. So I know this is the case for most guys that watch my content because they've not even been coached. So for guys that have been coached, this is still quite a big hang up. Yeah, when they're early days at the very least, is there's just this air of hesitation in a lot of the things that they're saying to the girl. And a big way that this comes up specifically is during the close, right? It's when they've actually had a pretty decent conversation with a girl, and it comes around the time where the conversation is starting to taper down, it's starting to fizzle out. They can feel that pressure of like, all right, it's now or never, it's time to ask her out. And they'll skirt around the edges quite a bit early days, and they'll go you watch my oldest infields, I was doing this, right? I was still building the skill. You watch my more recent infields, and when I ask a girl out, usually the way I say it is, by the way, do you like to drink? Yeah, sweet, I want to take you off your drinks. And I say it like that. Zero hesitation. Yeah. But early days, my clients, when they're first starting out, they usually say something like, so, another time, like, if it's okay with you, I'd love to take you out, maybe. And they'll add these little words. It's so subtle, isn't it? And it's crazy because like the stuff that I'm describing right now actually moves the needle way more than you spending 5 years in the gym. And it's kind of a mind fuck when you think about it, right? It's like, wow, this guy on a live stream is telling me that if I just change the way that I present myself in these conversations, which takes work, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't take 5 years of pushing iron, does it? And so this is just a quick tangent. Guys will spend 5, 10 years investing all of their time into their physique, into their career, into their social status, whatever that even means, into their looks maxing and their skincare routine, but they will spend 0 minutes investing time into the stuff that actually moves the needle. And remember, I'm not just talking head telling you this moves the needle. I'm the guy who's in the infields that ideally you've watched if you follow my content. So I'm the guy who actually sets up the dates on camera for you, uncut oftentimes. Yeah, on camera for you. The guy who does that is telling you that what actually moves the needle has much more to do with a guy's behavior and much less to do with his looks. Much less to do with his looks. I'm not an idiot. So I understand that being 6'5" and looking like a male model is absolutely a benefit. Absolutely. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's not. But changing the way that you behave in these conversations, improving your behavior and the way that you're conveying yourself to the woman that you're in front of absolutely moves the needle way more than you spending a decade in the gym trying to increase your bench press to 315. Genuinely, genuinely. And the way to substantiate this is there are plenty of guys that are much stronger than me that have way less social confidence than me. So that clearly means that results in dating is not directly attached to how much weight you can push in the gym or how amazing your physique looks. Remember, I'm a scrawny fuck. I mean, look at me, barely any muscle on me. right? Yet I'm able to do that in the infields. Why is that? It's because for all of the time that these guys were spending in the gym pushing weight, I was going to the gym once, twice, 3 times a week. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I was in the gym every now and then, but I certainly wasn't in there religiously. For all of the time that these guys were spending just completely entrenched and focused on their career, I was clocking into work too. Don't get me wrong. But I wasn't spending 16 hours a day trying to grind towards being a millionaire. I would love to be one, but I wasn't doing that. What I was doing instead was I was satisfying these areas at a basic level because this is the area that I was prioritizing for the past few years, right? So I was getting in the gym so I could look good enough. Yeah, I was clocking into work so I could make enough money to pay rent and buy food because I like takeout. I don't like to cook for myself. And the rest of my time that wasn't spent playing spike ball with my friends or playing pickup basketball at the park with my friends was spent walking over to women and getting over my fear. And because it was spent doing that, my behavior in these conversations improved to such a level that I realized I didn't need to do any of this shit that all these other guys swear that you need to do in order to get results with women. I just needed to improve what actually moved the needle and got me results, which was my behavior in these conversations. All right. So we'll get off the tangent now. Give me a moment. So hesitant language is huge. All right. This is, again, remember, guy could be 6'4", looks maxed. But if he gets in front of the girl and he goes, yeah, you look really good. By the way, am I holding you up? I don't mean to hold you up. Sorry. Am I holding you up? I don't mean, I know your time is valuable, but so do you want to chat with me? I get it if you don't, but you do? Okay, cool. And then they get to the end of the conversation and they go, remember, this is the same guy, right? This is a guy who, let's say he's 6'4" and looks like a male model, but he's going, so, um, do you want to like go out with me maybe? Or no, it's okay if you don't, but do you want to like maybe go out for like coffee or something for something, like, and he's like, you see how the behavior is so different, right? I sound so insecure. I sound so unsure of myself. It doesn't matter how good I look. If I sound like that, if my behavior is like that, versus you pan over to my most recent infields and my behavior is much different, isn't it? There's a sense of entitlement, which we'll get to towards the end of the live stream. But I just walk over to the girl and I just assume she's going to want to chat to me. And I just assume she's going to like me. And sometimes she doesn't. And I'm okay with that. I still walk over and I give myself the best chance by just assuming the best. I just assume best case scenario. Oh, that girl's hot. Yeah, she'll probably like me. And I just walk over, right? And because I have this sense of just going for it fully, committing to it fully. If I'm going to walk over and get in front of this girl, I'm going to do it in the most committed way possible. And because my behavior throughout the conversation matches that, I'm able to get results without being Mr. Looks Max, without having a face skincare routine. Look at how jacked my beard looks. I haven't gotten a haircut in 3 months. Again, no muscle on my body. Yet I'm able to get stellar results when it comes to this. And now I even teach other guys how to do it. Yeah. So we'll move on. But just to wrap this point up, hesitant language is a big signal of insecurity in these conversations, just conversations in general. But of course, I teach guys how to speak to women in person, otherwise known as cold approach. So when you're walking over to a girl and you're using very tepid language, then you might look in the mirror and go, well, I look good. I have a good career. I got money in the bank. I have friends. What's the problem? And the misguided guy is going to look to red pill advice and go, oh, I guess I need more money. Oh, I guess I need more muscles. Oh, I guess I need more skincare products. No, no, no. You just need to change your behavior. And that's not just an overnight fix. It's not like you just download what I'm saying into your brain and all of a sudden your behavior changes. This is a social skill, right? Just like any other skill, in order to improve upon it, you have to practice it, intentionally practice it, not just go out and make the same mistake over and over again. That's practice. So, good job for practicing. But intentional practice is actually auditing what's going wrong and why it's going wrong, and then how to properly correct it so that you don't make the same mistakes moving forward. And that is a process. Yeah. So a cognitive skill is something like software engineering, is something like Being an attorney and reading through all the laws is something like being a data analyst, whatever the fuck they do. I don't know. Right. But that's something that involves logic and understanding something and then applying it. But it's all cognitive. It's all IQ based. Yeah. It's all cognitive intelligence stuff. But a social skill requires social intelligence, which means you don't just get to read it off of a textbook and then all of a sudden, oh, I have the social skill. No, the way to practice a social skill is to go out and suck at the social skill first and make slow but steady improvements over time. And if you want to make fast and steady improvements, then again, my link is in the description, so you could apply for coaching there. But the point is, you have to be very conscious of what you're doing in these conversations. This is where, just to pause once again, this is where guys tend to start to say stuff like, oh, cold approach doesn't work, or cold approach doesn't work for me, right? They say stuff like this. They try to self-diagnose, and they start looking for alternatives, and they go, well, I guess I got to maximize my dating profile now. Well, I guess I got to go do 5 more years of looks maxing and gym maxing in order to have success with women. But in reality, like, boil this all down. Cold approach is just it's just a label. I can't speak, can I? It's just a label. Cold approach just means socializing with women in person. That's all this is. It just means socializing with women in person, specifically women who don't know you yet, right? That's why we call that. That's the cold part. Yeah. Cold approach. So like, what an asinine statement. Socializing with women in person doesn't work for me because blank. And the reasons that they'll give is because I tried it 5 or 6 times and I didn't get a date. Or the guy that keeps making the same mistake over and over because he's not changed his behavior yet will say something like, well, I did 500 approaches and I'm not getting any dates and it's not going anywhere. So it must not work for me. Right. And this is Ian is a great example of this kind of client, right? What a solid client he is. He came to me, right? If you're unfamiliar, you can click over to my client transformation series on the playlist tab. You can watch. Ian is littered throughout my channel, right? And his entire transformation is there. But he's a client who came to me after doing, in his own words, 600 approaches. Yeah, and I think he mentioned he got 3 or 4 dates out of that, happy days, but they never went anywhere, right? He was on a 4-year dry streak before he reached out to me. And that's an example of a person who, firstly, didn't give up. So props to him. But that's an example of a person who just kept making the same mistake over and over and over again. But the good news with him is, rather than looking at this skill and going, oh, I've done 600 of them, I've not gotten laid yet, it must not work for me. Socializing with women I don't know just doesn't work for me. So I guess I'm going to go back to dating apps. Instead of taking that approach, instead he went, okay, I must be missing something here, because this guy Ephraim on the screen doesn't look any better than me, right? He's taller than I am. He makes more money than I did back then, right? He was a data analyst and I was working a low-level sales job. So why could I get the results, but he couldn't? Well, the guy who is very pessimistic is probably going to go, oh, well, it's because Ephraim has a nose ring. It's because Ephraim can grow a beard. That must be it. That must compensate for the height difference. We can speak. I can speak, can't I? But that's not what he did. Nah, instead, he took the very socially intelligent, I would just call it the intelligent approach. He took the intelligent approach of going, wait, it works for this guy, but it's not working for me. So instead of trying to say this just doesn't work, I should try to figure out what I'm doing differently than this guy Ephraim and how I can more closely match what he's doing so that I can get close results. And that's exactly what he did, right? He reached out to me. First, it was virtual. We started going over his approach and I went, oh, this is all wrong. Firstly, props to you for going in for 600 of them, but you went in for 600 piss poor approaches. They were all bad. I can tell they were bad just on how you've described to me what you did. They were all bad, right? And so then he came and he worked with me, and very quickly he was able to correct all of the things that he was doing wrong. And then you add on top of that he was already a guy who fulfilled a lot of what I'm talking about here. He could already make eye contact. He never froze up in the conversations, or very rarely, right? His tonality was already pretty solid. That's something we did work on, but pretty solid. And then the most recent one I talked about, hesitant language, that was kind of his Achilles heel, was he was using a lot of hesitant language. But the point is, notice how changing your behavior changes your results. Whereas he still looks the same as he did when I met him before he was getting results. Still has the same frame, right? Still same muscle mass frame, still has the same look, has not done any reconstructive jaw surgery. He's still the same height. And in fact, he quit his job so he could pursue a different career path. So he's getting the best results through cold approach he ever has in his life, making less money, all else equal, and making less money. How is that possible? It's because he's improved behavior. He's changed his behavior, which I've said this entire stream is the actual thing that moves the needle when it comes to socializing, flirting, and getting romantic results. That's the thing that moves the needle. It's your behavior. It's not your looks. All right. So let's move on now. So the next thing is very closely connected to the last, but it is different. It's hesitant body language. So the last thing was hesitant language. The one that we're on now is hesitant body language. All right. So again, hesitant body language communicates nervousness, insecurity. Yeah. So what does it mean to display hesitant body language? Well, a lot of this comes down to the stop. All right. So this is a big one I work on with my clients. This is the first thing we work on. How are you actually engaging with the girl? So the most hesitant body language is the guy who tries to walk alongside the girl. So essentially what he's saying is whatever I have to say is so insignificant that I'm just going to like go along with wherever she's going. Now all of a sudden I'm walking alongside her and I'm going to try to chat her up as I'm walking. And I don't think that I'm valuable enough for her to actually stop and engage with me and actually give me her attention. So I'm just going to try to like tag along with her and start walking. Oh, are we going to the mall now? All right, let's go to the mall. And they just start walking alongside the girl. That's the most pussy way you can go about cold approach. Yeah. And go figure, the guys that do this, I rarely see any solid results with those guys. Yeah, I rarely do. Not to mention, it's kind of weird, right? Not to mention, you're a stranger all of a sudden following the girl, right? I mean, that's essentially what you've done is you've walked over and said hello. She's given you no confirmation that she wants to engage with you, and you're just walking alongside her. Weird behavior, right? I tell my clients to never do that. Now, most of them already know not to do that, right? So once we get past that, if that was ever a sticking point, the next thing is, okay, so you're telling me, Ephraim, that I should be stopping the girl. How do I do that? Well, the very hesitant way to go about this, the way that communicates nervousness and insecurity, is to try to stop the girl, one, in a very concealed way. So what this looks like is making yourself smaller and getting closer to the girl so as to not have to project your voice, which will turn fewer heads. Right. So that's the thought process is, well, if I can go over to this girl and be quiet and be more reserved and kind of like make myself physically smaller and kind of like give her a small little wave, then maybe fewer people will turn their head and watch me try to shoot my shot, because I'm nervous that if she rejects me, my whole ego and my whole sense of self-worth is attached to whether or not she likes me. And so if these people see me get rejected, I feel so bad about myself. That's usually the thought process. That's a very hesitant way to go about it. Another way that's slightly better, but still very hesitant, is a guy who doesn't do that, right? So he doesn't make himself smaller and get super close and whisper, which, by the way, usually startles a girl in the first place. So that's already starting off on the wrong foot. But the one step up from that is a guy who does give the girl enough space, does project his voice, does make it quite clear what he's doing, but stops her at an angle, right? So he'll essentially, what I'm saying is he's not committed to the approach. So if the girl is facing the camera, let's say, the guy will, instead of stopping her like this, the guy will stop her from like over here. Imagine this is one of my clients. So if you're the girl and this is one of my clients' early days, then oftentimes what they'll do is, rather than saying, hey, excuse me, hi, how's it going, and being right here, what they'll do instead is they'll go, hey, excuse me, hi, how's it going? And they'll be over here. You see, my hand is fucking off frame right now. It's barely on frame. They'll be over here chatting to the girl. Yeah. Big step up from walking alongside her. Yeah. Big step up from startling her by being all quiet and concealed, but still not optimal. It's still not optimal. Okay. So rather than doing that, which demonstrates very hesitant body language, I teach my clients how to do this, which tells the girl, I'm here. Hello, I've arrived. Let's chat. And the reason guys hesitate to do this, the way that I teach it, is because of the ego. It's because they're afraid that if they go in full conviction, the blowout will feel more severe. And they're right. They're right. It does feel more severe. But that's the point. It's a positive, it's a plus plus scenario. It feels more severe when she blows you out. Therefore, your ego gets battered even more aggressively, which is a good thing, which is a great thing. Yeah, we need to be taught that we're not this big, important hotshot that we think we are. We need to be humbled. We need to learn that we're allowed to get rejected and it's okay, and we still come out of the other side alive. So that's the first plus. But the second plus is when she doesn't reject you, this is a lot different than this. Yeah, for the guys that are watching the stream instead of listening to it, being directly in front of the girl is a lot different than walking over at an angle. Because once again, that just has it has notes of hesitation, right? The walking over at an angle just has it's littered with notes of hesitation. It's essentially saying, non-verbally, it's saying, I don't believe in myself. I don't think you're actually going to want to engage with me. I want to leave I want to leave the door open in case you don't stop for me so I can get out of here quickly. I want to make it less obvious what I'm doing so that if you do reject me, the people around me, they question, was he flirting with her or was he trying to sell her something? Yeah, that's like the subconscious program that's running in the heads of guys who walk over in a hesitant manner like what I'm describing. And it's a negative, right? So walking over head on, just actually getting fully in front of the girl is a plus plus. Walking over from the side is a minus minus, right? The first minus is you're preserving your ego, which is the opposite of what we want to do. That's the opposite of development, is to preserve the false narrative that we have about ourselves rather than showing ourselves who we truly are. Yeah, that's the wrong thing to do, is to try to preserve our ego. That's what these red pill guys are raving about. They're trying another quick tangent. All of these looks max, gym max guys are trying to mitigate risk. The only reason they want to mitigate risk is because they want to preserve their so ever fragile ego. They can't come to terms with the fact that plenty of women are not going to like them. Plenty will and plenty won't. And they just can't come to terms with that. They need to be validated. They just need to know that every girl is going to like them, even though it's impossible. And they just need to be so secure in that fantasy that firstly, they'll never do something like cold approach. But to take it a step further, they go and they put makeup on their face. They go and they get a perm and they do all this skincare routine shit. Yeah, they go and they buy designer clothes and they put all their skill points into the gym because they're so worried that the girl won't like them if they go over and initiate. So they try to get the girl to initiate. How pathetic. Yeah, the people that I'm describing, their ancestors just 2, 3, 4, 5 generations ago fought in wars when they were our age. And these guys are so removed from that they feel the need to just put all of their reps into the barbell, all of their reps into their career. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I should clarify. And this is also not a blanket statement. There's plenty of people that are super muscular and also have rock star confidence. But just overall, the theme of the whole looks max, gym max movement is I'm too scared to initiate a romantic relationship. So I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid having to do that in hopes that the girl will do that for me. That is looks maxing. That is gym maxing. That's what it is. That's what it's built upon. That's its foundation. Is, oh, approaching a girl is a simp, man. You're doing that, you're a simp. Instead, what you should do is you should attract the girl. Oh boy, you should attract the girl. Yeah, you should just go to the gym and start benching 315. And trust me, the girl will see you bench that weight. She'll walk over to you. The girl will see your pecs when you're walking around shirtless at the beach. She's gonna walk up to you, bro. How's that going for you? I mean, honestly, how's it going for you? Is that working? Yeah, is that working? Are the women running up to you and going, oh, your pecs look amazing. Do you bench 315? Let's go out. Is that working? I doubt it is. And I can't verify that it is or isn't because I've never been Mr. Gym Max. So who am I to say? I didn't take that route. I just took the manly route. I just took the ballsy route of walking over to the girl, regardless of my ego. But those guys, they could beat me up. Absolutely. They could pick me up and throw me across the room. But they can't walk over to the girl over there who is wondering if she looks good in the dress. Yeah, they can't walk over to the soft-spoken woman over there who looks all pretty and dolled up. But they're meatheads though. They could bench all this weight. Yeah, they're super manly, but they can't walk over to a woman that they're attracted to. That's how fragile they are in reality. Yeah. Again, not blanket statement. This isn't a blanket statement. I'm very aware there are plenty of guys that are super strong and they have the balls to walk over to the girl. I'm not talking about them. I'm specifically talking about the guys who turn a blind eye to initiating romantic relationships and instead they take the very pussified route of just trying to optimize their extremities, look cute, look pretty, in hopes that the girl will initiate. And how is that going for you? All right, I just realized I'm still on the tangent, bro. Let's get back to it. Okay. So the last thing we were talking about was hesitant body language, okay? This absolutely shoots you in the foot when it comes to these conversations. So again, technique can be amazing and the guy can look great and he can have a stellar career, but if he's signaling this hesitation, i.e. nervousness and insecurity, it's a big turnoff. Yeah, it's just showing that he's not confident and committed to what he's doing right now. And that doesn't look bold. That looks the opposite of bold. So just the fact that he's doing a bold act like cold approach doesn't automatically compensate for all of the lack of boldness that he's displaying with his behavior. So behavior it's so important to optimize. And then the last thing I wrote as far as this portion of the stream is a low self-esteem. So this is a guy who doesn't think much of himself. Yeah, and I'll talk about how this is communicated in the conversation, but he doesn't think much of himself. He thinks that he's not worthy or he's not dateable. He thinks that the girl shouldn't like him. That is a big turnoff. I mean, that's a big turnoff for people in general. Like I imagine everybody on the stream would rather be around somebody who likes themselves versus somebody who goes, yeah, bro, life sucks. Job sucks. Girls don't like me. I'm never going to do anything with my life. So well, what's even the point? What's even the point? It's like nobody wants to be around that person, right? We'd much rather be around the person who goes, yeah, I mean, I'm not getting results right now, but I know I could do it. I know I got to put in the work. Yeah, I know I could figure this out. Yeah, I'm not where I'm not where I want to be financially, but I know what to do. I know that I can go and take this software sales course and figure it out, or I know I can go back to school and get this degree, whatever, right? It's much more beneficial to be around somebody who has a positive outlook on life versus somebody who has a low self-esteem. And so the way that this communicates itself into conversation is through all of the things that I've just described here, right? Which is a lack of eye contact typically. Yeah, freezing up in the conversation, having a weak tonality, just sounding very unsure of themselves, using very hesitant language. That's probably the biggest. Very hesitant language and body language because they have low self-esteem. But it probably does come out a bit verbally too, right? With the guy just saying like, why would this girl even like me? Yeah, maybe he's on the date. Why would you even like me? Right? Just low self-esteem in general. It's just an unattractive trait. Yeah, and I'm very guilty of this, I must say. I mean, I'm guilty of everything that I've just spoken about here. At one point, this was all conscious stuff that I was working on, and I'm still not maxed out in every area by any means, right? This is always a work in progress. I never want to come across as the guy who's just figured everything out. This is all a work in progress. But the point is, at this current position that I've gotten to, wherever I am on the spectrum with everything I've just described, I can get the results that I give you on camera. I show you on camera. You got the audio, you got very clear 1080p video. Yeah, we're not at 4K yet. All right. But you got very clear audio of what I'm saying and what the girl is saying. Yeah, you can see my body language very clearly. So wherever I am on this spectrum of what I've been describing in this live stream, I can get those results. And then to take it a step further, I can teach guys how to get results as well, right? So all this to say, what I've learned through just about going on 3 years of being around cold approach and learning it and applying it and practicing it, what I've learned over these 3 years is the things that actually move the needle when it comes to whether or not a woman is attracted to me have less to do with how I look physically and have much more to do with how I behave. And that's why I emphasize on my streams and in my content behavior, and I don't emphasize looks, right? All I emphasize is technique and behavior. And that's why I break down on my streams or on some of my videos, I break down like what I'm doing in these conversations, why I'm saying it, specifically why I'm saying it, how I say it. Yeah, there's a reason why I say I want to take you out for drinks as opposed to, well, do you wanna, maybe do you wanna go out for drinks maybe? Maybe do you wanna go out for drinks? Like, if you're free, maybe we can go out. There's a reason why I don't say that, and instead I say, "Well, look, I wanna take you out for drinks." And I just say it like that. There's a reason. And again, it seems so small, right? It seems so minor, but that one fix will change your dating life more than 3 years in the gym. It's a crazy claim, but I'm so genuine when I say that, right? Learning how to not freeze up in a conversation will improve your dating life much more than spending 5 years working on your bench press. I'm not saying you can't do both. Absolutely do both if you want. But you'd be insane to think that the work that needs to be done socially to improve the areas that I've gone over in this live stream can be sorted out under a squat rack. They just can't. It's just they're two completely different skills. One is training slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fibers. The other is training emotional resilience. Yeah, the other is training social intelligence. They're in two completely different worlds. So to think, this is why I'm just so against the looks max, gym max movement. To think that you could maximize your extremities and that will change the things that actually move the needle, which is behavior, is just it's just an absolute crazy thought. And I am a living, breathing example of this. Yeah. When I was 23, I looked just just like this. In fact, I looked a little bit better. I was more focused on trimming up my beard. Now I don't even give a fuck. I got more of a rugged look. Who cares? Maybe when I go film, I'll clean it up. I don't care these days, right? I was much more focused on being in the gym more frequently back then, and I was going months to years at a time with zero dating activity, and I looked just like this or better than this. And it's not until I changed my behavior that my dating life improved. And it's crazy it's crazy how drastically it improved, right? Like the level to which it improved. Because for all of the years I was spending trying to find a look, trying to find a style, a beard, a haircut, trying to find trying to be in the gym and get a nice muscular frame, all of those years led to a couple matches on dating apps. Yeah, that's about it. And once I changed my behavior, that led to more dates than I can count, more dates than I ever even wanted to go on. I just thought, "Oh, well, I guess I got another date lined up. Let's go." Like the magnitude to which changing my behavior improved my dating life, it's it's actually incomparable to me being in a gym, me trying to get rich through a programming career, me trying to do a skincare routine. It's crazy. Yeah. And again, this isn't just talking head, like, trust me, bro. This is the guy who gets the results on camera, audio and video, and posts them on the internet for everybody to judge him. It's that guy telling you that this is what actually moves the needle. So if you were lucky enough to come across the space of cold approach, because I genuinely think if you got these kinds of videos, I'm not just talking about me, but if you got cold approach recommended to you through the YouTube algorithm, I believe that you're lucky, because a lot of guys never get this content recommended to them, and instead they just get the whole looks max content recommended to them, and they just for years they just stay in this bubble of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I got to do more push-ups, I got to do more squats, I'm still not worthy enough, the girls are still not running towards me, I got to make another six figures before they'll ever love me. And a lot of guys, it's so unfortunate, they're just trapped in that space. If only they could come across this content and really just be open enough to accept it. Yeah, It's really life-changing stuff, man, to recognize and what I'm talking about too, it's hard, don't get me wrong, it's difficult. Like, everything I've gone over in this live stream, it's not like it's not a piece of cake to sort out. But the point is that you're able to sort it out. That's the point. You know, you can't unless you fly to a different country and break your knees to get taller and break your jaw to look prettier, you know, you can't really change how you look aside from your physique and your what's the word? Your presentability, I guess, your presentableness. Anyways, you can only do so much to how you look, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And when you reach that 4% body fat that you're after and that whole looks max archetype that you're after, and then you look around and you wonder why you still don't have the dating life that you thought you were going to achieve by doing that, then I'd invite you to consider that maybe the thing that actually improves your ability to attract the women that you like and that you're attracted to has less to do with your physical appearance and has more to do with your behavior. Yeah, your emotional stability, your resilience, your ability to tolerate difficult things, go through them. Yeah. And all that has to do with the stuff that I've discussed here. So yeah, so to end off the stream, the key to remember is everything I've just discussed is stuff that you can improve on. And now let's go into a bit about how I improve them. Yeah. So for me, a lot of this content that I just talked about was mostly sorted before I ever came across cold approach. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So I'll go through a couple. So eye contact, right? Eye contact, freezing up in conversation, um, and low self-esteem. Those boxes were already checked before I ever even knew cold approach existed. The reason why they were already checked was I had a extensive sales background prior to learning cold approach. And if you're familiar with sales, then you'll know that it's it's a brutal career path. And my experience was knocking on doors in high school. I was knocking on doors to sell coupon books to raise money for my football team, getting doors slammed in my face. We'd post up at a grocery store and we'd be going up to all these people coming in the grocery store soliciting, right? Then I was doing cold calling for a window cleaning service that I used to work at. This is when I was about 18, 19 years old. Wintertime when nobody wants to get their windows cleaned, I'd be cold calling or warm calling, either one, either open accounts or new accounts, trying to solicit business for the upcoming spring and summer months. After I would clean a house, I would start walking door to door through the neighborhood. Or if I cleaned a restaurant, I'd start walking business to business through downtown, trying to sell a service. Walking in, big smile on my face. Hey, I'm Ephraim. You're neighbors with Miss Johnson, yeah? Look how sparkly her windows are. Don't they look amazing? Well, look, I clean them and I can clean yours. Slam, right? Not interested. Already got somebody cleaning my windows. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but the point is, a lot of the things that I had to learn to get good at that was things like how to make eye contact with somebody. Yeah. Was how to continue chatting to somebody once they opened the door and I had their attention. And so I had buttoned up on a lot of these areas prior to coming across cold approach. But I don't think you need to go get into sales in order to succeed with cold approach. I don't think you need to go take an improv class like one of my clients did in order to succeed with cold approach. Those would help. And I would absolutely encourage anybody to do that if they just want to speed up the process. But another way that's just as viable is to just do more approaches, and not just random approaches, very intentional approaches where specifically for guys that have been coached, right? That's obvious when I speak on my streams, when I speak to my audience. That's pretty obvious, right? There's a reason why I advocate coaching so much, and it's because this is not an easy skill to build. This is not a DIY kind of a skill. It involves a lot of different moving parts, and a lot of it is stuff that you can't see, but you can hear it. You can see some of it, but a lot of it is stuff you can hear, stuff you can feel. And for a lot of my clients who are cognitive, analytical guys, what I've just said there doesn't even make that much sense. It sounds like I took a high dosage of shrooms from their perspective. They're going, "What do you mean you could feel it? What are you talking about?" Right? You can feel it. And I can say it with certainty. Remember, the guy who's actually making the content that you watch, this is what I'm saying, is it has more to do with your behavior and your energy in these conversations. And so uh, I certainly had a point there. Give me a sec. Oh yeah, I was just going through how I already had a lot of this stuff buttoned up prior to getting into this space. So the way that you can go about, if you don't want to get into sales, which I don't blame you, this shit sucks. It makes a man out of you for sure, but it does suck. If you don't want to get into, if you don't want to enroll yourself in an improv class, I get it. I haven't done that. But if you do want to get better dating results specifically through cold approach, the first thing I'd encourage you to do is get coached. And it's because it will expedite your progress by so much. Remember, the client that I have showcased on my channel, Ian, had done 600 approaches and gotten fuck all results, right? Then he came to work with me, definitely did not do 600 approaches with me. Probably something more like 70 approaches, maybe somewhere around that, 70 to 100 approaches with me, but very intentional approaches, right? Where I was watching him, I was listening to what he was saying because he had a wireless mic attached to him. Yeah, I had a camera pointed at him so I can audit the footage and we can go over it together afterwards. Very intentional approaches. And so once you've gotten coached, the next thing to do, if you don't want to get into sales or improv, would be to just do more approaches. That's it. Yeah, to just continue practicing the skills that I've just talked about, the behaviors that I've just talked about that actually move the needle, the eye contact, learning how to not freeze up in conversation. One way to do that, take an improv class. Another way to do that, get into more conversations. That's about it. That's about it. It's not by reading books. It's not by consuming more content. It's by going out and applying the stuff you've learned already, going out and just getting into conversations and getting stuck, and then coming back, listening to the recording, going, okay, I got stuck there. Maybe next time I could say something else. Why didn't I just talk about myself there? Oh, I guess I could have, right? If you're somebody who's trying to self-teach, these are the kinds of questions that you should be asking yourself. How could I have done better there? Where in this conversation did I go wrong? Because remember, some of them are just doomed from the beginning. Some of them, the girl just was never going to be interested from the start. But there's a lot of conversations that you are probably getting into where the girl actually would have been interested based on you, based on her, based on your potential compatibility, based on maybe your similar interests that never got discovered because you froze up in conversation. Yeah. Based on your quirks, based on your personality and how well they would have meshed with hers. Like there's a great chance that the women that you're approaching, some of them would just like you and want to go out with you, but you're probably having trouble communicating these different quirks about you to the girl because, let's say, you're freezing up in the conversation. That's a big problem. But the only way, aside from paying some teacher to teach you improv or just trying to self-teach, like the only other way to get over that problem is to have more conversations. It's just to practice it. It's not by reading books on how to have a conversation. It's really not. Yeah, I didn't do any of that shit. I read a couple sales books. That was it. Then I just went and I started selling. And that's how I got better at chatting. That's it. So yeah, just remember, like the key takeaway from the stream is everything I've discussed, all of it is improvable. So that should be very great news to any listener who's struggling with cold approach right now, is you're not stuck, right? We're all dealt a hand. We all have different upbringings, different opportunities, but you're not stuck wherever you're at. So now, present day and moving forward, 2026, it's all on you. It's all on you. You get to decide whether or not you want to put in work to improving this area of your life or whether or not you want to continue making excuses. And I'm not saying you specifically. I don't know you, but the whoever resonates with what I'm saying probably gets it, right? They probably go, yeah, I know I'm making excuses right now. Yeah, I know. I'm just too scared to walk over, which again, if you would like help in this area of your life, then I invite you to click that first link in the description below to apply to work with me. I should remind you that the criteria to work with me, it's not like insane, just so you know. Obviously, I'm not cheap, so don't think that you're getting something for nothing. But some guys, they might hesitate to actually book in a call because they think, well, I'm not like I'm not making six figures, or well, I'm not like, I don't look amazing, or no, that's not what we need. What I need from a guy who wants coaching, yeah, to make somebody, or to get somebody accepted to work with me, what I need is a good attitude, a willingness to put in work, and a willingness to go through the suck phase. You're gonna have one. Everybody has one. Some people's suck phase is shorter than others. It's not because they're better. It's because they have different experiences, right? So a guy who's taken an improv class, his suck phase is a lot shorter after being coached than somebody who has worked on a computer their entire life and barely socialized with people. But you will have a suck phase, and you're going to have to go through it. There's no way around it. So that's what I need from my clients. Guys who are just willing to put in the reps, and it's gonna suck at first. Don't get me wrong. It is gonna suck, right? Your ego is gonna get battered. But there's a reason why I don't just try to frame this as a very easy skill set. It's because I don't want very easy clients. I don't want guys coming through the door thinking that this is gonna be a piece of cake, because it's not. And they're gonna get that kind of guy is gonna give up quick, and he's gonna make me look bad, and I don't want that. I want people to know up front, which is why I'm very particular with who I work with, that this is a difficult skill. And I know that there are guys out there that hear that and they get fired up about it, right? Some guys, they hear that and they duck their head and they go, yeah, probably not for me. Let me go back to Hinge, go to Hinge, click off. But I know some guys, the guys I'm talking to, they hear what I'm saying and they get fired up, right? The go-getters, the achievers, the guys that the guys that want to challenge themselves, the guys that want to claw themselves out of the pit instead of waiting for somebody to come rescue them. Guys like me, guys like my clients, right? We're go-getters. We don't like to just settle for what life gives us or the cards that we were dealt. No, we like to change our cards. We like to trade them in. We like to improve them. And we want it all, you know? So those are the guys who naturally end up reaching out to me, are guys that just, they know they have something about them, and they know within themselves that this isn't going to be easy, but it is possible. It's very, very possible. And it's crazy because once you're coached, the more that you do this, the easier it does become. And then all of a sudden you look back on the last few months and you just thank yourself for going through that difficulty. Yeah, that phase of life where you weren't getting much traction, that phase of your approach where you're walking over and you were lacking the eye contact, or you were freezing in the conversation, or you had hesitant language, and you went through that so that you can improve that, so that you no longer ever have to go through that again. And you get to a point where lining up a date is not hard anymore. And then you can just move on with your life. That's the other thing I should say is I don't work with guys who want to make this their hobby. You know, obviously this is a big part of my life because this is how I make a living now. But prior to going full time with this and creating a brand out of this, for me, cold approach was just a skill in my back pocket. Yeah, just like I'm good at catching a football because I played receiver in high school. You know, just like I'm good at playing one-on-one quick scoping on Black Ops because I was a nerd when I was 12 to 15 years old, and I did that for hours at a time. I would just quick scope the sniper rifle on Black Ops 1. Just like I'm good at that. Like those were all just little hobbies, little portions of my personality. And so cold approach was no different. Never did I become Mr. PUA who just peruses the streets and the malls all day and all night because he needs to get his notch count up because that makes him feel better about himself. No, it was just a skill. Yeah, my day to day was like I would wake up. I had a remote job at the time. I would do my programming. Lunch break, I would go out, get some takeout, see some cute girls on the sidewalk, go chat them up. Sometimes I line up a date there. Right after work, I would walk to the gym or board to the gym, see some girls I liked, go walk over, chat them up there. Sometimes I'd play spike ball with my friends at Dolores Park. Yeah, on the way there, on the way back, I'd see some girl. Maybe sometimes at the park, I'd see a cute girl. I'd go over, I'd chat her up there. It was always just a skill that I had that I can use as needed. But never was it like, all right, I'm waking up. Time to cold approach. Let's do it. All right, this is my life. And so the reason I say that is I further want to separate myself from any guys who have that mentality. If you're a guy who's trying to get into this, who's trying to learn this skill set because this is all you want to do with your life, we're not a good fit. We're not a good fit. I'm looking for guys who are more or less normal. They have families, they go to family events and stuff. They have friends that they go and they socialize with, or they don't. Yeah, I've worked with some guys who don't have a big friend group either. They have little hobbies that they do, right? Instruments that they play or clubs that they're a part of, or anything really. Just they have other shit going on, and the only thing that's missing right now is that their dating life is lagging behind. Those are the guys I'm interested in helping out because that's the solution that I have. So yeah, you can click the link in the description below if you'd like to schedule an application call. Okay. My coffee's cold. That's unfortunate. Well, anyways, now that we're at the end of the stream, if anybody else is watching, I imagine you guys are like my loyal subs. So why not give some updates, eh? So yeah, we're at the new year. It's 2026 now. So yeah, what are we looking forward to this year? So firstly, I've got an immersion scheduled. I got a coaching immersion scheduled in February, mid-February down in San Diego. So I'll be coaching a guy down there. Then immediately after that, mid-March, so not immediately, but mid-March, I've got an immersion scheduled for New York City. We're still finalizing details there, but for now we've picked mid-March as the dates. So the loose plan for now is to be SoCal in February, New York mid-March, and then I'm still open to doing more coaching if guys while I'm in the States specifically. So if there are guys that are watching this that are ready to get this sorted, then now is the time if you're based in the States, because after mid-March in New York City, my plan is to fly over to Europe. I'm going to get some content out there. So either I'm going to link up with Dan, the cameraman in London, or I'm going to link up with one of my previous clients and get extra content and extra coaching for him, or both. And then the plan is to just retreat after doing that whole experience, probably be about a month or two. The plan is to just retreat to another small city somewhere in Europe, assuming I don't have coaching. Otherwise, if people are booking my calendar, then I'll be be going place to place or having guys meet me in certain places to coach them up. But yeah, if I don't have coaching after New York City, then yeah, I'll just do that, and then just be editing all the content that I would have gotten over the past couple of months. Yeah, continuing to roll out the content though. Still got, man, just a lot of editing, dude. My whole life is editing these days, man. If I have any OG viewers on, then you'll notice I'm posting shorts now. So goal with that is to just widen the audience, widen the net. So hopefully guys that are doom scrolling, if their dating life is shit, they'll go, wait a second, this is cool, and they'll click over to my content. It's already happened actually, which is cool. And then you'll see I kind of ramped up the posting. So I'm putting out, aside from infield, still got quite a few of those to go through. Still got some clips that I got with Ian that I got to edit up and post. But then I also am doing my my sit down breakdown videos of some of these infields so that I can really explain my process to guys. So yeah, those are the plans. I will say I do miss the comment section in these streams. It was fun back when I enabled comments and I was able to engage with you boys, but honestly, one, they tend to get too distracting, and two, I just got to be more aware of my time these days. Now that I got a lot of people who are paying me for my time, it's like I just don't want to spend any excess time answering comments from people who haven't paid me for my time. So for those of you who are just loyal subs, you're still getting all this shit for free, right? You're getting all my live streams, all my videos, all my breakdowns, everything's for free. But yeah, now that I've actually got guys paying me, I've got a community of guys depending on me, I just don't have time to engage with the people who haven't invested into themselves. So yeah, those are updates. I'll aim to do streams whenever it makes sense. Honestly, I don't have a schedule for these, but yeah, this topic came up specifically with one of my clients who I coached about 3 months ago, and he asked me an interesting question, which is, I won't go into it, right? Because these conversations are private, but I guess the gist was he kind of had gotten in a rut because he'd already gotten some dates through Gold Approach. And, as we audit his conversations, he sounds really good, but he just has trouble getting himself to just go back out there and approach more. And we all have these seasons of life, but part of his hang up was just thinking, I feel like it just takes so much effort for me to get a date. Whereas for guys like you or for Ian, you guys seem to make it look easier. You don't have to do as many reps or yada, yada. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but, and my answer to him was, it's not just that it's not that we have to do fewer reps. It's that we make our reps count more. So just speaking for myself specifically, right? Because obviously now I've coached Ian up to the point where he can do something very similar, which I'm very, very proud about, right? That makes me feel really good as a coach, is to see somebody just flying with the skill set. But more specifically, it's not that I have to do fewer reps. It's that my behavior is so different in each of the reps that the women who were already going to like me prior to me walking over, it just confirms in their mind that I'm the guy who walked over, I guess is essentially what I'm saying. So for somebody who's still fairly new, fairly early days, still has a lot of work to do as far as these areas of the live stream I went over, yeah, like that person is going to have to put in more reps. It's not that they need to do more reps, it's that they need more practice. They need to fix the behavior that they're displaying in the conversation, right? The tonality, the hesitant language or body language, right? The maybe they're maybe the body language is quite hesitant, right? So but I get it, right? Because I've been there. And that's the thing. It's like with each and every client, it's so funny. I just see who I used to be in them. I'm just like, wow, we're the same person essentially, right? Different DNA. Maybe we look different, but we're same journey, different timeline, but same journey. And we all have to go through our suck phase. My suck phase started far before cold approach because, maybe the client that I'm referring to, maybe he was just working a corporate job, typing away on his laptop, or maybe he was going out to concerts while I was knocking on doors selling a product, right? While I was picking up phones and cold calling executives, while I was trying to recruit people into a pyramid scheme, because that was part of my past as well back when I was 20 years old, 19. Yeah, I think 19 years old. So either way, the reps have to get put in, right? So when you see somebody who exceeds with this skill set quicker than other people, again, the naive guy is just going to quickly go, oh, it's the looks, it's the height, it's the whatever. But the person who understands what's going on and what I've talked about on the stream, he's going to go, oh, it's just that he's doing something differently than I am, isn't it? Exactly. Because if you put my infield on the screen and then you put an infield of one of my newest clients on the screen, they look so different. And it makes sense why, right? I've practiced this so much more, so it makes sense why. But it's crazy to think that with the biggest with those big differences, you can get similar results. No, you're going to need to continue improving upon the foundation that you've built, right? And so, anyways, kind of going in circles now, but all right, I got to get back to editing, boys. Been going on for 90 minutes. Hope you boys enjoyed. Link in the description below if you'd like to apply for coaching. We got to get back into the gym, man. Where'd the definition go? Oh, it's all right. We'll get there. Well, it's not a priority, is it? We're changing lives right now. That's the biggest priority. Changing lives, traveling the world, coaching guys. God, it's fun. I guess we'll end off with this is so fun. If you boys remember about a year ago, right? January 2024 or 2025. When was this? Yeah, about a year ago, January 2025, I was working that in-person sales job. And yeah, and I was telling the audience on a live stream about how I want to travel, about how I want to coach guys, about how I don't want to be dependent on this job anymore. And 6 months into last year, I achieved that. And now, right, a year later, a year after that live stream, I'm pretty much living the life that I was laying out on that live stream, boys. So, this all goes beyond cold approach, right? We all come into this space because we want to get better dating results, but you got to think about this a bit deeper, right? Like think about the life transformation that happens when you become a guy who's just bold enough to go after what he wants. Then you just become bold enough to put in your 2 weeks resignation. Then you just become bold enough to book a one-way flight to Serbia. You just become bold enough to put together an offer and start selling coaching. You just get bold, right? So anyways, boys, love you as always. Thank you for the viewers who stuck around. I appreciate you. Wish I knew who it was. I wonder if it's D1. D1, you still around, man? Anyways, boys, chat soon.